So hello, everyone. My name is Megan. I am a senior library assistant at the Kitchener Public Library. I'm at the library today in the basement at the central location, but you are joining us from anywhere and we're excited to have you. Today's session is the last session in our Learn to Camp Camping 101 series with Parks Canada's Learn to Camp team. It is camping safety and how to protect yourself and the environment. We are going to be recording the program today so that folks can watch it later. If you're watching later, hello. And it'll be on our YouTube channel shortly after the program ends. If you have any questions, we'd love to have them. The Parks Canada team, Vanessa and Emily, are going to be presenting and also fielding any questions. So please throw them in the chat. If you hover over the bottom of your screen, you can see options for the Q&A or the chat. And we'd love to have your participation. I think that's basically it. I'll let our hosts, Vanessa and Emily, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. All right, so everyone can see my screen, okay, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so hello, bonjour, everyone, and welcome to Camping Safety, and thanks for joining us today. So my name is Vanessa, and my pronouns are she and they, and I'm a part of the Learn to Camp team at Parks Canada at Rouge National Urban Park in Toronto. And I'm also here with Emily, who will introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily, and I work on the Learn to Camp team alongside Vanessa this summer as well. Today I'll throw in some links into the chat and then help field some questions at the end.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so Parks Canada would first like to acknowledge that Rouge National Urban Park is built on the ancestral land of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And at Rouge National Urban Park, we are very proud to be working closely with 10 First Nations through the First Nations Advisory Circle on the establishment, planning, and management of the park. And we work closely with the First Nations partners on many important projects, such as archaeological fieldwork, restoration projects, and the development of visitor facilities. So since we're all on a video call and not actually in Rouge National Urban Park, we'd like to encourage you all to learn the history of the land in your area by exploring the nativeland.ca website. So this website is a really great resource for learning more about the Indigenous territories that make up the land that we call Canada, and in other countries around the world as well. Also, languages that are spoken, treaties that were signed, and overall, it's a really great resource, and I highly encourage you all to go ahead and check it out. So here at Parks Canada, we protect and present Canada's natural, cultural, and agricultural heritage. And this includes national parks, national historic sites, national marine conservation areas, and Canada's first national urban park, which is the Rouge, located here in Toronto. And this slide shows our mandate at Parks Canada. So on behalf of the people of Canada, we protect and present nationally significant examples of Canada's natural and cultural heritage. We foster public understanding, appreciation, and enjoyment in ways that ensure their ecological and commemorative integrity for present and future generations. And here is a photo of the amazing urban park that I am so lucky to work from. So Rouge National Urban Park is really unique because it's the only one of its kind in all of Canada, and it's right by the Greater Toronto Area. So it was established to protect the area's natural, cultural, and agricultural heritage. And it has over 10,000 years of human history, including some of Canada's oldest known Indigenous sites and some of the last remaining working farms in the Greater Toronto Area. And the park can be accessed by transit. It's always free, and it's a really great place to explore nature near the city. So if you'd like to learn more, please take a look at our website, The link will be provided in the chat for you. And I'm also here representing the Learn to Camp program. So this is a really cool program that's here to help beginner campers learn about the basics of front country or car camping. And together we learn how to feel more comfortable in the outdoors. And we highlight ways that we can camp safely. So our program today will last for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have about 15 minutes at the end, to answer any questions that you might have. So today we'll be talking about some tips and tricks on staying safe and being respectful in the outdoors. So whether you're going camping for a week or whether you're just going hiking for a day, you have some important safety considerations to remember. And throughout our presentation, we'll be covering what to know before you go, which includes how to make a safety plan and some essential items that we should bring with us. And we'll also be looking at general tips for while we're outdoors, such as being aware of our environment and wildlife. So I'd like to first begin by sharing my story of how I started to like camping. So one of the first few times that I went camping, I went to the Glen Rouge campground at Rouge Park with my extended family. There were quite a few of us, and part of the reason why that experience was so meaningful to me was because I got the chance to spend time with so many of my family members who I didn't get to see very often. And this trip was also the first time that I got to try things like s'mores, and I got to go hiking. And it was also the first time that I got to see animals like deer and turtles in the wild. So it was really exciting, and part of that trip, or part of what made that trip exciting, was that we prepared and planned a lot before we went on the trip, and we were kind of prepared before we left. So overall, it was a really great experience, and preparing beforehand was kind of what got me into camping and kind of what made me sort of more excited for it. Which brings us to our next section, which is know before you go. So we'll be going over some important information to know before we go on a trip outdoors. So it's always a good idea to start by first making a safety plan. So we'll talk about what a safety plan is, why it's important, and how to use the AdventureSmart app. So a safety plan can mean lots of different things in different situations, but it really is just about making sure that someone else is aware of your plan so that if there's an accident or if you get into any trouble, someone else will notice that you didn't return on time. So this is a presentation mostly about camping, but we also want to tell you that making a safety plan is super important, even if you're just going for a day hike and not going somewhere overnight. So in your safety plan, you should include details about who is going, so stuff like how many people are going, what their ages are, maybe some physical descriptions. And you can also have a good idea of who you plan on sending your trip plan to. So it should be someone responsible, preferably an adult. So when we go front country camping, we most often also have to check in and out with the park staff at their office when we arrive and leave at the campground. But often when we go on our own adventures outdoors, like on hikes, it's important to share your safety plan with someone who isn't going on the hike, for instance. So next, we should include details like where are you going and what are you doing? So these details can help authorities understand your behavior and where to look for you if something goes wrong. So in the where are you going section, you can include details like the name of the location you're going and your estimated return time. And you can also list the activities that you plan on doing, such as hiking, camping, or boating. And in the last section, we should include details about what supplies and equipment we plan on bringing. So this can help authorities locate you and understand how prepared you are in the event that you have to stay longer than you plan to stay. So you can include details about how much food and water you're bringing. You plan on bringing any shelter, such as a tent, and you can also include as many details as you can about the different types of equipment you're bringing as well. So for instance, you can describe the colors of your clothing, your supplies. So for example, you can say that you're bringing a yellow tent and that you're planning on wearing a red top and jeans or something. So a safety plan is kind of important because it can help authorities find you if there is an emergency or something. So if you leave a safety plan behind, then that means that somebody knows when to expect you home, and they can call the police if you don't arrive home on time. And they can also share important information with the police, such as where you went and what equipment you have that they might want to look for. And it can also increase your self-confidence if you leave a safety plan behind. So it'll help you feel safe knowing that someone knows where you are and where you want to go, and they can help you return home safely. So one great tool that's also free to use that you can use to plan your trip is the Adventure Smart app. So this app kind of breaks down the information that you need to plan your trip, and it makes it really easy to share it with others. So you can plan everything on the app, and then you can send it to whoever you plan to send your trip plan to. But also, if you don't want to use the app to make your safety plan, you can also just write down the information on a piece of paper and give it to whoever you're planning on giving it to, or you can email it as well, just to have a digital copy as well. So now we're going to practice making a safety plan together. So we have a little scenario for everyone. So today we are going on a hike in Rouge National Urban Park. And there are 3 adults and 2 kids, and 1 teenager in our group. And we are also bringing our dog. The weather is a bit uncertain outside, but it looks pretty sunny. So based on all of this, what information do you think we should write down in our safety plan? So please write down any answers that you can think of in the chat. So remember the questions that we just talked about, all the different sections. So who is going? What are we doing? Where are we going? What are we bringing with us? Stuff like that. So there are lots of different types of things that we can put in our safety plan. But again, remember, the more details, the better. So again, remember the major points are who is going and who do we want to send our trip plan to. So remember who is coming on our trip. We have 3 adults and 2 kids and 1 teenager, and we also have our dog with us. We can also write down what our names and ages are, and maybe say like how tall or what physical descriptions again, because the more details, the better, so that if someone has to come and looking for us, then they'll know who to look out for. And also, where are we going and what are we doing? So we're planning to go for a hike, so we can maybe list down the name of the trail, and we could even print out an itinerary or like a little trip plan and plan out our route on a map or something. And when are we going? So we can write down the date and the time that we left at, and we could also write down what types of supplies and equipment that we're bringing with us. So if we're bringing a water bottle or any food or any jackets or something, so that if it rains, we're prepared, or if our search or whoever's searching for us will know what sorts of things that we're prepared with. So we've already learned based on that scenario that planning ahead and basically knowing to write down stuff and details in our safety plan, super helpful and super important. But another way to help us be safe is to generally bring items with us that can be essential for our survival. So by bringing these items with us, we can help ensure that we're prepared for any situation while we're outdoors. So here on this slide is a photo of some items that you could choose to take with you in your backpack when you're going outside. But some of these items are more helpful than others. So based on this, if you were going on an outdoor adventure, which of these items would you choose to take with you to help keep you safe? So please feel free to write down your answers in the chat again. So I know that having a medical kit might be, yeah, ukulele. That sounds like fun. Yeah, when you're hiking or if you're like boating or something, having a ukulele can kind of lift everyone's spirits up. Someone said sunglasses. Yeah, for sure. That would be super helpful. Sun protection is always a good thing to bring with you. And a water bottle, also a great idea. And water is super helpful and super important, especially when you're outside, because you get tired super easily and you get dehydrated as well. And chocolate for energy, that can also be super helpful. And a whistle, yeah, exactly. It's a great one. Something to make noise with if you ever get lost and you want someone to figure out where you are. Yeah, these are all great answers. The knives, yeah, that's also a super helpful one. It's one of those things that you don't really think that you'll need it, and then suddenly you do, and then you're like, oh no, I should have brought that with me. Sunscreen again, yeah, also super helpful. Yeah, sun protection is one of those things that really often gets overlooked too. So yeah, sunscreen and sunglasses, super important. Yeah, these are all really great answers. Thanks for sharing, everyone. But yeah, so of all the items in the last picture, we came up with 10 of them that are the most essential and that we think that you should probably bring on your adventures because they can all be super essential for your survival. So number 1 is a flashlight or a headlamp, or something that can generally give you a bit of light. So especially if it gets dark outside, your chances of getting lost are even more if you don't have a light source with you. So having a flashlight is something that you should take even if you're going for a daytime hike, because sometimes when you're outdoors, you don't notice if it gets dark, and if especially you're in the thick of the woods or something, you might not notice when the sun goes down. So having a flashlight is a great way to kind of help your chances of staying on the right path. Number 2 is the fire making kit. So fire is something that we can use for a lot of different things. So you can use a fire to stay warm, to cook food, to signal to other people who might be looking for you, and also to keep animals away, because animals don't like fire or smoke. But then again, as useful as making a fire can be, it's important to remember that we can't make a fire unless it's absolutely an emergency. So we should never light a fire in an undesignated area, since especially in times like this, wildfires can spread very, very quickly. So this is something that's a last resort. And also number 3 is a signaling device, so a whistle or a mirror. And this can really help increase your chances of being heard or being seen by people who are looking for you. Number 4 is extra food and water. So make sure to plan out how much water you'll need to bring with you for your trip outdoors before you go. And it's also a good idea to bring some extra water just in case. So having extra food and water can also give us an energy boost if we need a bit of more energy to get out of an unplanned situation and help us get back on track. Number 5 is extra clothing. So stuff to protect us against the rain, the wind, and water in general. So temperatures can also change really drastically when you're outdoors. And having extra clothing is a good thing to have on hand because you always want to try to stay dry and warm when you're outdoors. Number 6 is navigation or communication aid. So you should try to carry at least a compass or a map with you at minimum, just to have like a paper copy with you. So I know that most people tend to rely on their phones because it's more convenient and you can use both types of technology with you, but sometimes we don't always have GPS or cell phone service. So especially if we run out of battery or if it gets damaged in some way. So it's always a good idea to try to carry a paper copy with you just in case. And number 7 is a first aid kit. So something that includes bandages and medical supplies. So I would suggest knowing how to use it before you go, and maybe also taking a first aid course to get certified so that you can familiarize yourself with what to do. And if you do not happen to be certified, that's also totally fine. But I would suggest trying to get someone who is certified in first aid to come with you if you yourself aren't. But even if you can't, bringing a first aid kit is also a great idea. But if you're bringing it with you, try to familiarize yourself with all the tools in your kit before you go. So there will usually be labels and directions for some of the items as well. So you can kind of figure out what to do and what you might need them for. Number 8 is an emergency blanket. So this can help you keep warm and dry. And the one in the photo here is very light, compact, and it's also reflective. So it'll preserve your body heat. And it can also be used as a signaling device. So you can combine 2 essential items in one. Number 9 is a pocket knife or a multi-tool device. So this is a really great tool that you never really know that you need it until suddenly you do. So for example, if you need to cut anything, there's a knife and a scissors tool for you. Number 10 is sun protection. So sunglasses, sunscreen, and a hat. This can help protect you from dehydration and sunburns as well. So even if it's not supposed to be a sunny day, it's important to have these on hand just in case the weather changes. So the UV rating outside can also still be high even if it is cloudy outside. So with all of these essential items, you should try to test them at home before you go so that you can make sure that they work properly. And if you have the space, we also recommend trying to set up your tent if you're going camping. So try to set up your tent before you go and know how to work any camping cooking equipment that you're bringing, like a stove or something. So try to work all your equipment outside before you go, just to make sure that everything's working properly. Also, be comfortable with any gear that you're bringing and know how to pack and unpack it so that your trip goes smoothly. So now that you're prepared to go on your camping trip, we'll have a look at some tips to keep in mind while you're there. So it's really important to be aware of your surroundings when you're camping or outdoors. So we're going to talk first about a few points for environmental and wildlife awareness. And then we'll have some general tips on how to leave no trace while you camp. So when you're enjoying your time outdoors, there are a few factors that we should be aware of, and the first one is your environment. So some things to be aware of are things like rivers, roads, steep cliffs, and unstable edges. While these places are often really beautiful to look at, you have to take extra special care around them so that you can avoid any accidents and ensure your safety. So for example, if your campground has a river or any water nearby, you need to make sure that you're aware of the conditions of the water. So check the speed and the depth. And don't go near it if you're not comfortable swimming. And you can also check what kinds of wildlife live in the area. So things like rivers, ponds, streams, and lakes are habitats for many different kinds of wildlife. You should also be aware of any potential safety hazards to both you and the animals or plants before you get close to it. So for roads, it's important to be aware of things like vehicles, pedestrians, and wildlife. And there are many roads that are hotspots for wildlife crossings, which can put them at risk. As well, some roads don't have proper sidewalks or pathways for humans to walk or bike along. So that can be dangerous, especially since many cars can go very close to pedestrians along the sides. And this is especially true at campgrounds, since many of them have winding roads through them that are meant to be shared among pedestrians and motorized vehicles. As for steep cliffs, oftentimes visitors will come across cliff edges and unstable landscapes while hiking along trails, and then they'll wander off to the edge to take photos, which can put them in danger. So erosion, which is essentially when materials like soil and rocks are worn out over time and are displaced from their initial settings, or basically when the ground gets like softer or like crumbly or less hard. So this can be very, very dangerous. So we often trust that the ground beneath us is stable and hard enough for us to walk on, but especially at cliffs and bluffs, we can't take this for granted. It's always better to be safe than sorry, which is why it's best to stay away from steep cliffs and unstable landscapes. So many people get seriously injured by taking dangerous pictures. It's really not worth it. So some other environmental factors include the temperature outside. So in Canada, we're fortunate to have 4 different seasons, but these seasons can also come with extreme weather. So in the summertime, it often gets really hot outside and we have to be aware of the heat since it can often cause us to feel sick. And this is called heat exhaustion or heat stroke, and it can become very serious if you're not careful. So some ways to stay safe in the heat are by drinking lots of fluids and using sunscreen and hats to protect us from the sun. This is something that we often don't take very seriously, but it's very important. So in order to protect ourselves from the cold, we can take some steps to stay warm during our time outdoors by packing extra layers and extra clothing with us. And also, even during summertime, nights can get very chilly. So it's always a good idea to be prepared with a good sleeping bag and warm pajamas or an extra blanket just in case. But generally, it's always a good idea to check the weather before you go on your trip so that you're prepared, but to also keep in mind that it could change. So one of the best things about camping is that it brings us closer to different wildlife. But that being said, there are different signs of wildlife that we should look out for so that we respect the animals and we protect ourselves. So one great rule is to give wildlife as much space as possible. So here we have the thumb rule. So a good way to measure whether there's enough space between you and an animal is by sticking your thumb straight out in front of you with your thumb out. So if you can cover the entire animal behind your thumb, as you can see in the pictures here, that means that you are a safe distance away and that you will likely not be disturbing the animal. So you can see that in the second picture, the animal is completely covered behind your thumb. But in the first picture, the animal is not completely covered behind your thumb. So that means that you have to back away until you can cover it. So that by doing this, it'll help you to stay at least 100 meters away from the animal, which is what we kind of know to be a good distance between us and the animals. So the main reason why animals come into contact with humans is because they're searching for food. So in order to prevent this, it's really important to keep our campsites as clean as possible and also to never feed wildlife. So animals generally don't want to hurt you. So by keeping our spaces clean, we can help protect both the animals and ourselves and prevent any uncomfortable encounters from happening. And it's also a good idea to be aware of the plants in the area that you're planning to visit. So many parks in Ontario have poisonous plants, which is another reason why it's a good idea to research the wildlife in the area before you go. So for example, at Rouge National Urban Park, the 3 main plants to look out for are poison ivy, stinging nettle, and cow parsnip. So if you stay on the trail and you look out for signs indicating which poisonous plants to avoid, you should be okay. So staying on the trail is very important for a few reasons. So like I just mentioned, it can help you avoid poisonous plants, and it can decrease your chances of having an unwanted wildlife encounter, and it also prevents you from getting lost. So depending on where you're going, different parks, will usually share information with you about what sorts of plants to avoid and what wildlife can be found in the area, but it's always best to do your own research as well. So even though we were just discussing why it's important to stay on trails and not veer off, know that many of us have done that at some point. Sometimes you see a cool plant or an animal or a really nice view, and you can't help but want a better look. So many of us might have taken a pine cone or a rock or veered off the trail to dodge mud puddles, or had a wildlife encounter, or dropped some garbage into the woods by accident or something. While these actions might seem harmless at the time, it's important that we learn to reduce our impact so that we can protect our natural spaces. We can do this by remembering to take only photos and leave only footprints. So we can follow the 7 principles of Leave No Trace, which are a really great way to summarize all the information that we've gone over today to help keep ourselves safe while camping. So often when we go for a hike or we go camping, we only think about our personal impact. So for example, if I'm eating a banana and I don't want to hold on to the peel, I might just drop it off to the side of the trail and think that it's not a big deal because it's only one small piece of garbage. And of course, it's compostable, right? But then again, if everyone does this, our parks will quickly turn into landfills. And it's important to think about the broader impact that we have rather than just thinking about our personal impact in terms of litter. So for example, here's a picture that shows an empty park and everything is super clean. But now when we add some people out to the park, a bit changes. So lots of people are very considerate and the space looks relatively the same as it did before. Few people are sitting down, some people brought their bikes, scooters, which could flatten the grass a little bit. But other than that, it doesn't look like there are any lasting effects. But then again, even having lots of people walk in the same area begins to change the landscape of the park. So as you can see, the more people are added, the less clean the park becomes. So someone here had maybe a small barbecue, and it left a patch of dead grass. Someone else left a water bottle behind. Another person left a styrofoam container on the ground. These little things add up. So you can imagine what this is like for a national park that has tens of thousands of visitors every year. But then again, it doesn't have to be this way. So when we follow the 7 Leave No Trace principles, we can enjoy our parks and keep them clean. So here are the 7 principles. So number 1 is to plan ahead and prepare. So keep in mind things like the weather, different hazards, and emergencies that could arise. So just like our plan for hiking in the Rouge, we consider the weather and what equipment we would need, things like that. Number 2 is to travel and camp on durable surfaces. So basically to only go on established hiking trails and only camp on established campsites. So by doing this, we can protect ourselves from unknown hazards like fallen trees or dangerous plants and animals. And we can also protect our environment. And also remember to keep your pets on a leash to ensure that we aren't damaging protected areas. And this will also keep your pet away from ticks, which are bugs that can carry Lyme disease. Number 3 is to dispose of waste properly. So whatever you pack in, pack it out as well. Number 4 is to leave what you find. So if you see any cool rocks or plants, that this point is basically to leave whatever you find in its place. So always bring your garbage with you and don't leave it in the park, but also remember to leave natural items where you find it. So we don't want to introduce or remove anything from the park. So it's important that we leave it how we find it, or to leave it even better than we find it if we pick up some litter that we find. Number 5 is to minimize campfire impacts. So basically to use established campsites, campfire pits, sorry. And also to check for fire bans before you start a campfire. And again, only use designated fire pits and campgrounds so that we can reduce the risk of starting a forest fire. Number 6 is to respect wildlife. So basically admire animals from a distance and use the rule of thumb to know if you're too close. And again, remember that we should never ever feed wildlife because that can really harm them. Number 7 is to generally be considerate of others. So respect other visitors by making space for other users who are hiking along the same trail, and to avoid making loud noises when you're hiking or when you're camping in general. And just to remember in general again, that parks are shared spaces, and we have to be considerate of other visitors as well. So we have a few calls to action for everyone. So number 1 is to learn the leave no trace principles that we just went over. Number 2 is to leave a detailed safety plan with a reliable adult before you go hiking or camping. Number 3 is to respect wildlife by following the rule of thumb and by keeping your distance. Number 4 is to download the Adventure Smart app to help make your safety plan. So if you'd like to learn more, please visit our website. We've also included our email and phone number. You can also follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook to stay up to date with what's happening in the park. But that brings us to the end of our presentation. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask them now.
Okay, thanks very much, Vanessa, for a wonderful presentation, very informative. It was also very neat to see your personal perspectives about Rouge National Park. My question is for both of you, Emily and Vanessa, what are your other favorite national parks in Canada and why?
That's a great question. Personally, I'd say my favorite is Bruce Peninsula, just because it's one of the few other national parks that I've had the chance to visit. And it's really nice. The water is really blue and it's a really beautiful place.
What about you, Emily? Any favorites?
I really like the mountain parks, even though they're a little farther away from Ontario. I especially like Kootenay National Park and Yoho National Park. I think the mountain landscape is really unique in that area, and the subalpine landscape is really beautiful too. And there's many lakes that you can hike to.
Those are some great places to aspire to go. Does anyone have any questions? Do you want to drop them in the chat? Okay, my next question. If you don't have any sort of hiking or camping gear, let's say hiking at all, you basically have shoes in yourself and a water bottle. What do you think would be the first thing you'd invest in?
That's another great question. I would say probably a jacket with a hood, because then you can use that as kind of like sun protection and rain protection. And I'm assuming that you'd be wearing sunscreen before you go. I mean, if you don't have sunscreen, that's another thing to invest in. But yeah, I think like a light jacket is something that's great to have on hand.
Emily, any thoughts? Or maybe I'll ask you the opposite. Do you have any top hiking the other end? You've got lots of gear and this is like the best thing to buy at the top end of your expense range.
Right now, I'm trying to think about it. Ooh, maybe something for safety, like so for me on my bucket list that I want to get, but I haven't invested yet, is like a GPS coordinate, something I can use. So maybe that, if you've already got everything else.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a question there. The question is, what should you do with dishwashing water?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on your campground. They'll usually have like rules for what to do and like how to dispose of it. So at some campgrounds, you can kind of dispose of it at your campsite, and others they'll have like a designated station, usually near like the bathroom or something. So yeah, it depends on the campsite.
Yeah.
Great question.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else with any other questions? Last chance here.
Ooh, sorry, just to add a little bit for the dishwashing water, just make sure not to pour it around your tent because it has scents of food and that'll attract animals to your campsite.
Great tip. Hey, if nobody has any questions for our experts here, I'll thank you very much for today's session, and also to the Parks Canada Learn to Camp team in general for hosting us or being our guests, I suppose, for the last 4 sessions this summer. Break a leg on the rest of your sessions. And if you want to share this with friends, folks, we'll have it up on YouTube soon. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Get out there and have fun. Be safe.